Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So I got a question to ask you on this morning. Um, who are you performing for? I'm excited about this week's conversation. We're talking about identity all this week, okay? And I think that you're really going to enjoy this series, The Weight We Carry. It's Mindset Reset Monday, right? Listen, you can't heal if you keep disappearing to be loved, all right? You can't heal if you keep disappearing to be loved, all right? So my big question for you is, where have you abandoned yourself in the name of being chosen? We don't have to judge that, but I think that we have to get honest about self-abandonment. And so we're going to talk about that in our four areas: our love of self, our interactions with others, our focus, and our emotions. All right. Listen, it's Mindset Reset Monday. All right. So who are you when you stop performing? Who are you when you stop performing? Not when you're at work, not when you're being a good friend, not when you're being the strong one, not when you're being the responsible one, not when you're fixing everybody's problems, right? Not when you're controlling all of this chaos, right? But who are you? All right. Who are you when no one else is watching? All right. When those roles start to dissolve, or you stop playing those, right? Who are you? All right. If you don't know the answer to that question, that's what we're talking about today. Okay. So, a lot of times we don't really know ourselves outside of the roles that a lot of us have been handed to, right? Like, you're going to be this. Okay. And we haven't went on a personal journey. And I always talk about this itch, though, right? This itch, or this heaviness, or this weight that comes with us taking on roles, doing things that was given to us. And it's this kind of like unsettling thing that comes up where it's like, well, who am I? All right. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Again, it's Mindset Reset Monday. And we're stepping into our identity. Identity is so huge. I talk about identity a lot, right? It's a part of my stop and now method, right? And I feel like there's two things in life that you absolutely need to know. You have to have an expectation, right? Life is about expectation. So really you're living a life that you expected to live, whether you doing it consciously or unconsciously, right? And that expectation is truly based on your identity, right? And I love Myron Goldman. He said that you have your lie identity, your my identity, and then your identity, right? And so your lie identity is what somebody told you about you that some of us are still wrestling with. Your my identity is when you kind of get out of that stage and kind of go into what I call emotional intelligence, the achievement mode. So, like, you have identified these spaces that you're going to be, and then there's your identity, right? Which is really your divine given identity, right? And a lot of us don't, we wrestle with that, but we don't really take the time to figure out who we are. So, last week we talked about exhaustion, really the weight of over functioning. If you want to watch that series, make sure you go join the YouTube channel at I Am Shaping Solutions. But this week, I think is going to be even more important because we're talking about disconnection, the weight of forgetting who you are. All right. And today's lesson, it's for everyone who's ever changed, right, themselves to be loved, right? Everyone who ever changed themselves to be loved. So just raise your hand, or, because I think that's a part of our growth. All right. But sometimes we get stuck in it. So in today's life lesson, we're going to talk about why, right? Why you learned how to shapeshift to really earn love, how self abandonment shows up as people pleasing and emotional code switching, and then how to really stop disappearing and really start coming home to yourself. All right. So let me tell you about a client that I work with. All right. She came to me in my office and she said, Dr. Sheila, I don't even know who I am anymore. Right. I've been everything for everyone. I've been the good daughter, the supportive partner, the reliable friend, but I don't know what I actually want. Right. And, you know, I want to say I love when people come in with that, but I do love when a person kind of has been fed up, right? And they're seeking. A lot of these individuals are successful. They built a prominent professional life, right? But they're dying on the inside, right? They're really stopped. They're really tired of performing these roles, but they're so loyal to the roles that it's this kind of guilt or betrayal that they feel, right, when they try to change these roles. So when she said that, I asked her, well, when was the last time you said no to something that you didn't want to do? All right. And she paused and she whispered to me in a very slow, low, I can't even remember. I can't even remember. Because here's what she didn't realize, and what so many of us don't realize, you guys, is that you can't heal if you keep disappearing to be loved. All right. There's so much conversation around healing. There's so much conversation around self love and all of those things. But I think what people don't realize is that there's layers, right, to this process. And that's why I created the life acronym, and that's why I coach individuals to be life coaches, right? But this term life, right? We love ourselves and then we interact with others, right? In the interactions with others, that's where our self love is truly, I don't even want to say tested, but it is challenged in a way to strengthen us, right? So if we want a different relationship, a different interactions with individuals, then it does start with you, but not this selfish, I'm going to cut off everybody, red flag community that we have going on. It's really about feeling these emotional challenges that come up. That's really there to strengthen our voice, right? To help us to identify our boundaries, to help us identify what we value, to help us say, I was in that role last season, but this season, I'm going after something different. All of those are very courageous acts, but all of those teach our nervous system that we're safe, right? And then the people that are not supposed to be there, you guys, trust me, they will leave. Those relationships will dissolve. But if you have this cutoff game, you're communicating that you don't want any connection, right? So you can't cut off here and think you're going to be open somewhere else. All right. When we cut off, your mind is so unconditional that it's like, oh, so you focused on cut off. Let me send more people to you so you can cut off. So we have to practice vulnerability. We have to practice challenging our emotions. We have to stand up and advocate for ourselves. And those things are very difficult and different, right? It's a different type of posture that we have to take on as individuals. But you are safe as an adult to do that. And it is a learning curve. And a lot of people have not been taught how to do that, which is why I encourage a program like Project Life, which is why I encourage go to therapy, right? So you can find your voice and then start learning. Hear the word, learning how to what? How to sit in that voice, how to use that voice, right? Like confident people just didn't get confident overnight, you guys. They became confident by rehearsing the same thing over and over and over again, by rehearsing their values, by rehearsing their boundaries. Okay. So I want you to know that. So again, when I asked her when was the last time she said no, she said, I don't even remember. Because again, what we don't realize is that we can't heal. Okay. We can't heal if we keep disappearing. Listen, somewhere in your story, you learned that love required you to shapeshift, right? And I get a lot of flack for this, but I'm like, you know what? If God made you 100%, just try to stay and be 100%, right? That's the most challenging thing to do, is to keep your A in life, right? To not choose to become a B or a C student of life. Okay, let me say it like this: to keep your A as a student in life. Okay. That's the most challenging thing to do, because when we have pressure from other people, we tend to then settle for the B, right? In life, we settle for the C because we feel like, if I make this adjustment for them, then they will think this. And the truth of the matter is this is not true. You're teaching them how to treat you. And if God made you an A, then it's our responsibility to put the work in, to do the things that's required to keep our A. All right. And a lot of us are upset because we have a C life, right? We have a D life, and some of us are even failing at life, and we feel that, right? Because we've given so much of our power away, so much of our voice away to individuals with the hope that they will love us. All right. So, another thing I want you to know is when you become what others needed, even at the cost of your own reflection, there's a witness that's witnessing that, right? And that witness is your nervous system, is your intellect, is your divine being that's watching you, in a sense, abandon yourself, right? As a consequence of trying to build a relationship with someone else. So in today's lesson, it's all about the weight of forgetting, the weight of the forgotten self. All right. When you spend so long being what others need that you have forgotten who you actually are. And I'm saying forgotten, but some of us really never even tapped in, you guys. I had a great conversation with one of my Jack and Jill sisters over this weekend. And, I say a lot of times we forget, but a lot of times it's just not activated. It never got activated because in your role coming up, right, a different strength, a different need was activated in you. The need to be the strong one, the need to take care of your siblings, the need to show up in a way that would benefit the team, right? That would benefit everyone, right? And so we never really got to become individuals. And then we carry that into our adult life, and unconsciously, right? The people change, right? The people change, but the energy stays the same. Where you're noticing that you are abandoning yourself, right? For the team, for the kids, for the husband, for the wife, for the friends. And that's okay if that's what you want to do. When it's not okay is when you're bitter because of it, when you're heavy because of it, when the weight of the world is on you because you've done this. All right. So here's my why for this session or this lesson. I created this lesson because too many of us learned how to learn that love is conditional. All right. We learn early that acceptance comes with requirements, that belonging means blending in, and that being chosen, you guys, means being that being chosen means being compliant. All right. That in a sense, I need to comply to these individuals' rules, right? And then subconsciously, guess what we do? Then we do other people like that, right? So then instead of having boundaries, we become controlling. If you do this, if you don't do this, well, to be in my life, then you got to be like this, right? Because we've been taught that mechanism. And then we start to do that with our kids, with our loved ones, with our friends. And then when they don't comply the way we have chosen to comply, then we're upset and then we're cutting them off. But life is not about controlling other adults. All right. Life is about feeling what you need to feel in the allowing and acceptance. Right. I know we have hope for so many people, even ourselves. Right. Right. We hope that these individuals will change. We hope that they will see us. We hope so many things about other people, right? And then we hope that when that happens that they will see us, right? And this is the hope that many of us have clung to so long that it has made us bitter, it has made us upset, it has made us angry, and it has made us withdrawn, right? From communities, from friendships, from family members. But I just hope that this conversation today really opens your eyes up to, hey, you got to love you. And that is a learning curve if you've never been taught. And we don't have to judge your mama or your daddy or your grandmama. We don't have to judge nobody, right, for not giving you the tools. Because if we're going to point the finger at them, then we have to point the finger at you because you're an adult now and you knew you lacked this tool. So instead of you complaining about your mama and what your daddy didn't do and who didn't show up, then why didn't you do it? Right. So if we're going to point the finger at them, then we might as well point the finger right back at you as an adult. Right. So that's why we're not going to judge it. Right. Because we can't blame one person without looking back at you as an adult and say, well, why haven't you been to therapy yet if you know that you were missing that? Or why haven't you went and got help if you know that that has been a problem? Right. And so that's why we don't want to judge it because we only know what we know until we know something different. All right. So this lesson, it's about releasing the weight of self-abandonment so that you can finally come home to yourself so you can finally activate yourself, right? That real you, not the version of you that you have learned to perform. All right. So here's my disclaimer. This lesson is for educational, informational purposes only. It is not therapy or medical advice, okay? Listening and participating in this conversation on this Mindset Reset Monday does not create a client therapy relationship between you and myself, all right? This lesson, though, will help you to become more aware of the patterns of self-abandonment. But awareness, again, we all know is just the first step. All right. Transformation happens when you take action, you guys, and we really have to start to challenge ourselves and take some action in our life if we want to experience the wholeness that life is ready to hand to you. All right. So again, transformations happens when you take action by learning how to honor your truth, right? By setting boundaries, by understanding what you value, right? And then choosing yourself. And a part of choosing yourself is the best thing that you can do for everyone else, because when I can love me, right? The scripture says, love thy neighbor as thyself, right? So when I know how to love me and I know how to honor me, then I can do that for you. All right. But I can't honor you, love you, support you if I haven't taught myself that. And so when we start talking about healthy relationships, I can allow you to be you. A big part of my reason for allowing you to be you and loving you is because I want that too, right? And I've come to a point in my life where my voice is important. And if I feel like my voice is important and I want it to be heard, then I can what? Extend you with that gift as well. All right. So loving ourselves is truly not a selfish act. It is an act for everyone involved when we do it in a healthy way. All right. When we do it in a healthy way. Uh Good morning. Good morning, ladies. How are you doing this morning? Miss Hollis, Miss Kenietta said I needed this. I'm glad you needed it this morning. Hopefully you'll get some more insight as we go on. All right. I do want to say that if this conversation activates any emotional distress or internal identity dis-ease, make sure you contact a therapist or join the group, or you could DM me. We can have a conversation about some help that you can get. All right. So good morning. It's Mindset Reset Monday. Let's take our deep breath. No pressure, just your presence on this morning. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. Life Lessons is a part of Project Life. All right. Project Life is where we turn theory into practice, where we turn awareness into alignment, and when we allow healing or turn healing into habit. All right, because we know healing is a lifestyle. We're healing from things every day, you guys. It's not just this, I got to heal from my childhood. It's things that's happening in our life every day that we need the tools to be able to handle and manage in this great thing called life. And again, it's two things that we need to know, that our life, right? Our life is definitely um it's important enough for us to take the time out to really invest in ourselves. All right. And not just with our time, which your time is your most valuable asset, but also with our resources. All right. With our resources. Okay. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's take our breath. We're going to take our breath in, and on our inhale, we're going to say, I am safe being myself. All right. So breathing in, I am safe being myself. All right. And then we're going to exhale, I release who I pretended to be. All right. Whether we pretended to be that unconsciously, whether we were forced to do that, right? We're not judging it, right? But a lot of us are pretending, and we're protecting our pretending, and we're justifying our pretending, but we don't have to judge. And I know pretending could be a triggering word because nobody wants to pretend. But the truth of the matter is, if you're doing roles, if you're taking on roles and tasks that you really don't want to do, and you're saying okay and you're saying yes when you really mean no, then you're pretending. All right. You're performing. Okay. And again, we don't have to judge it, but awareness is the key. So we're going to inhale, I am safe being myself. And then we're going to, on the exhale, I release who I'm pretending. All right. While we're doing this, drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling on this morning. I am feeling, uh, I am feeling expanded, right? I have a lot of emotional things that are being digested, so much so like I can feel it in my neck. When I go to turn, it's like this pain in my neck. And so I am just been sitting with myself this weekend and just allowing these emotions to move through me. Some big things has happened, in my personal life, with my family, and things like that. And that's why I say healing is a part of life, even with all the intellect, right, that I have and all of the life lessons. I think I'm on 141 and all the teaching. Guess what? Life still happens, right? And then we still have to sit with ourselves and deal with that. Okay. That's what I'm saying. It's just not always about the trauma we experience, but the trauma that we experienced as a youth can be the very stone or the brick or the blind spot or the crutch that's stopping us from experiencing what life has given us today. All right, has for us today. Blessings, challenges, growth opportunities, right? We can't even see those today because we're so stuck on our past. All right. So again, I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. I'm Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I am a clinical therapist, well, a licensed master social work. I used to be a therapist for the last 20 years. Now I serve as a life coach, created the Stop It Now method. The Stop It Now method helps you to stop your past, get present enough in your present moment so that we can create a different future for you. All right. So let's do our body scan. Just get present in your body. All right. Feel that sunlight over your head, right? Just dropping down into your body, starting at the feet, right? We're just going to feel ourselves up from our feet with some kindness, some compassion, with some love, just coming up from our feet, up our legs. All right. Thighs, just touching every cell, 750 billion cells working on your behalf on this morning. It is like flu season, right? It's a lot of times we're getting colds, we're feeling more tired, it's less sunlight outside. All right. So let's just activate ourselves as that sunlight is pouring in us, warming our bodies up our all of our organs, our heart, pouring down our arms, right? Activating our hands, up our arms, right? Activating our throat chakra. This is very important for self love because sometimes we have to say some things that we know people are not going to accept, but we're not saying things for people to accept them, you guys. We're saying them because we want to honor our space. All right. Up our face. If you feel our jaw kind of tight, loosening that, lightening our ears, soften them so we can hear our conversation this morning, activating our eyes so we can see the thing that we want on today, right? So we can have something to be grateful for. And then out the top of our head as it pours over our bodies, right? This sense of gratitude. All right. Again, we're going to inhale, I am enough, right? As I am. And then we're going to exhale, I don't have to perform to be loved. All right. All right. If that felt good to you, put a heart in the chat for me. Listen, who is this lesson for on this morning? It's for you if you say yes when your gut is screaming no. All right. This lesson is for you if you change your personality depending on who is in the room. This lesson is for you if you silence your truth to avoid conflict or rejection. All right. This is the person that typically would say, well, I just don't like conflict. Right. So you're silencing your truth to avoid conflict or rejection. And this lesson is for you if you know who you are on the end, on the out. If you don't know who you are on the outside, if you don't know who you are outside of what you do for other people. So this lesson is for you if you don't know who you are outside of what you do for other people. Listen, this lesson or this is for you if you spent your whole life disappearing to be loved in the name of love. And I talk about love a lot. I'm like a very much like, listen, love is the first emotion I want to feel when I meet a person. Listen, because love is God, right? But to be for real, love is such an important a part of who we are as divine beings. But so many of us have said, I'm not going to love anymore. Like bump love. We done got our feelings hurt, right? And we've let that hurt uh, detach us from a divinity, from a place, from an emotion that really activates so many other things in us. And so hopefully this week talking about identity will get you back in relationship with love. And love does start with you, right? Loving you and loving you, right, does not have to exclude other people, right? So it's not, we don't live in a but I love me, right? And then it's like, and because I love me, I can't love you. No, a part of me loving me is learning how to love you because I have to accept myself. I have to look at myself in the mirror on days that I've done wrong. I have to forgive myself. I have to be compassionate with me, right? And when I learn how to do that with me, again, I can extend that to you. All right. So our powerful quote for this morning: you can't heal if you keep disappearing to be loved, you guys. We talked about the weight. We're talking about the weight of the forgotten self. All right. When you've abandoned yourself so many times that you don't even recognize your own reflection, right? Or you don't even know you, right? And so when you having these conversations with individuals, you're just like, I just want to know me. I just want to know what my purpose is because you've abandoned yourself so much. Again, we don't have to judge that. We just want to be aware of that. Listen, you learn early that love came with conditions, that being too much meant being unwanted, that having a voice in some way made you a problem, that having an opinion, right, about what you needed made you snooty or too much. Listen, and then you also learned that belonging required you to shapeshift, right? That you had to be something. Now I'm gonna speak specifically to my culture, although I love everybody who come in, but we have something called code switching, right? And so a lot of times, even in our professional worlds, right, we're trained, we're taught like to, in a sense, code switch, right? So to articulate ourselves a certain way, to show up a certain way. Why? Because you've been told that you have to work 2 times harder and be 4 times better than them, right? And this program has been reeled in our head. But what is that telling us unconsciously? That we're not enough for just showing up. I remember having a um a boss who, or a supervisor, and she really poured a lot into me. She was an older white lady, and she really did pour a lot into me. But we had this conversation about culture rating and assimilation. And she just felt like, my job as an African American woman was to assimilate. And and we would have this conversation all the time, and I was like, well, I would rather acculturate into the system, like bring who I am as an African American woman into this world, so that I feel like my diversity is enough, right? And it's important for me to bring who I am into this setting, right? And not whitewash that and assimilate to what you feel I should look like, talk like, and be like. And I do feel like, because of the role that I play, and because of what I do in my career, it's very important for me to do that. Now, that was a very I didn't say tough conversation, but I do feel like I had enough emotional intelligence to have this conversation with her, and we just agreed to disagree. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because so many of us we're taught that belonging is shape shifting. So as a consequence, we become chameleons, adapting in our relationships, adjusting at work, and performing for other people with this hope or this desire to be liked. All right. But here's what nobody ever told you: connection built on pretending isn't love, you guys. It's control. It's control when you do it to other people, and it's control when people doing it to you. And the cost is your identity, your voice, and your truth. And when you do that to people, you are not meeting the real them. All right. So when you have these rules that people have to live by, and and these cutoff game, right? When you're doing that to other people, you're not meeting them either. And so these relationships end up not, when we get to interactions, they end up not being authentic. They're very performative, and we feel that, right? But we don't know how to articulate it or put the words in. But here's the thing: if you want to be accepted for who you are, then a part of that is learning how to accept other people too. All right. So today's focus, um, I want to talk about another client that I had. I'm gonna call her Maya. Maya was everyone's favorite person. All right. She was everyone's favorite person. She was the friend who always showed up all the time, the daughter who never complained, and the partner who kept the peace, you guys. But guess what? In our lessons, or in our sessions that we had, she'd say, I don't know what I want anymore, right? I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what my purpose is. I've spent so long working for everyone else and doing things for everyone else and meeting everyone else's needs that I don't know who I am. All right. And then I had to pose the question, when did you learn that you had to disappear? When did you learn that you had to disappear? And then she told me about when she was a little girl. She was very loud, very expressive, and full of opinions. But every time she spoke her truth, right, she was told that she was doing too much, right? That she was too loud, that she was too sensitive, and that she was too dramatic. All right. She learned to shrink at a very, very, very young age. She started editing herself. She became smaller so that others can feel comfortable around her. All right. And by the time she got to my office and start working with me, she had been performing for so long that she didn't know how to stop, you guys. So much so that when I was giving her homework assignments and we were working on boundaries, she got emotional. Like her face would literally turn red and our eyes would water up, and we would have to talk through the fears that she felt about just simply saying no, or simply willing or communicating her boundaries. In some way she was like, well, can you fix them? Can I bring them in? Can I bring my mate in? And then we can have a conversation. Can you have that conversation for me? No, I cannot. Because you having the conversation is a part of your growth. And there's a witness in you that needs to see you, honor you, so that so you can move from fight, freeze, or fawn to emotional, to safe and social, which is the two states of our nervous system. And so many of us want other people to come in to communicate for us or say that thing that needs to be said. And it's like, it's more than just about you saying it. Stop dismissing that. It's more than just about you, about the person getting the message, right? So you can go to your pastor, have your pastor talk to your husband or your wife or your friend. You can go to your mama, have your mama talk to, your brother, your sister, right? You can go to your boss and have your boss talk to your colleague for you, right? Because you want to avoid conflict. But it's more than just about the other person getting the message, all right? When you learn how to communicate, you open up your throat chakra. You open up the energy fields. You start to really shift on the inside. You start to lift, right, this weight, and that will give you the strength and the confidence that you're looking for. But when you first start off, it's not going to feel good. And they may not even comply, right? They might not even listen. But that's not the point. The point is you practicing speaking your truth, right? So that your cells in your body can become in sync. And when they start to come in sync, right? When they start to see you advocating, then you will start manifesting the support, right? And then you will start to see things start to change. And then you will start to notice, right, your intellect speaking to other people, right? And intuitively, they'll start saying, oh, yeah, let me not say that because I already know that's not something that you do, right? Right. And then they will start respecting your boundaries. So it's not just about getting a message to the other person, praying to God about it, having God speak to the other person. There's work that we need to do as adults that we haven't went through. Like I think about kids who have to go through, like in Africa they do like a ritual thing, like when you turn 13, there's like this 16-year quinceañera that happens in Hispanic cultures, right? Mind you, there's a process of adults that a lot of us have not went through that really shifted our mind from dependent to independent so that we can create interdependent relationships. All right. So it's not to judge that. It's just saying, hey, we skipped the whole part, right? Me learning how to communicate for me being able to sit in this uncomfortable feelings and still tell you my truth, even if tears running down my eyes, right? Even if you say no, right? Know that your no to me is not a no to me, right? It's a no for you. But I'm going to advocate for me. And so many of us are still looking for people to advocate for us, to speak on our behalf, but that's your responsibility way more than it is that person getting a message. It's what it's doing for you. All right. So again, talk about my client Maya, right? She learned how to edit herself. She became smaller so others can feel comfortable. And by the time she got to my office, she had been performing so long, right, that she didn't know how to stop. Okay, again, like I said, she started to cry when we would give her activities and things like that. We spent months helping her remember and activating who she was, right? And really teaching her or helping her to learn how to stop disappearing. All right. And you know what happened? Some people didn't like the real Maya, right? Some people didn't like her, but the ones who stayed, they loved her deeply. And then she started to attract other individuals in her life that loved her and supported her. Now, was there a grief process in that? Absolutely. She had to grieve these people who left that she never thought would have left. But there was a freedom, right? There was a presence that she started to have, so much so that we went from every week visits to once a month to now it's just check-ins, right? And life is still happening, but she has the tools, all right? She has the tools to do that because real love doesn't require you to disappear, all right? Real love wants to hear you, right? Even when it stings, even when it's difficult, real love is created to sustain that conflict, all right? And conflict is not a bad thing, you guys. I remember having this thought in my mind of, iron sharpening iron, right? And in my mind, I don't know about y'all, but I thought I saw two sharp blades, right? In my mind, right? This is like 4 years ago. I see two sharp blades. Actually, I get this down on this question, like, what is iron sharpening iron? And I'm like, two sharp blades or whatever. And then I heard the voice say, no, it's not two sharp blades, right? And one of them turned into a file, right? And it was a tough season for me, but I was so glad that God gave me the analogy that it's not about being around sharp people all the time. Sometimes it's those people who are rough, difficult to talk to. Those are your lessons, right? That is where your growth is, right? And we're trying to cut those people off because we're looking for the yes men. We're looking for the people that make it easy for us to communicate. But that ain't even iron sharpening iron. Iron sharpening iron is having that difficult conversation with your child and telling them no, you don't have it, or having that difficult conversation with your mate about what you want to do with your life in this season, or having those difficult conversations with your friend, or asking for that promotion because you feel like you deserve it. These are the places where your soul is screaming the life you want, right? The love that you seek is on the other side of this. Okay. And I'm going to keep throwing these challenging people in your life until you learn how to what? Say no, right? And stand up and advocate for yourself because that's the lesson. All right. That's the lesson. You know, to be honest, I was just like Maya, right? I was the growing up, learned that my value came from giving and doing, right? And being everything for everyone. I was the responsible one at a very young age. If you came to my house, you know that 14, 15 years old, I had about 20 people in my house. I'm doing hair, I'm paying the bills, right? I'm I'm taking care of my mom, I'm taking care of my brothers, right? I'm taking care of my grandparents at 15, 16, 17 years old, right? You know, so much so that it had become a part of like my daily routine. I literally missed like 150 days in my first hour, I think, like 132 days or something like that from my first hour because I worked in my role at that time had become the provider. And so I took that role and I took it into my adult life where now I'm taking care of people and solving people problems and doing all these things. But what it actually did, you guys, is it made me feel invisible. That people only were my friends, right? Because I could do their hair. That was one of them. That was one of my beliefs. Number two, people was my friend because I had the resources and I could solve their problems. So my family was only close to me because of that. And so it was like all of these external things that I was doing that I felt like when I stopped doing those things, are you still going to know me? Are you still going to see me? Insured in a mug when I dropped everything in my life at 30, there was these interventions like, oh, we need to have these interventions for Sheila, like what's going on with her. I actually had one relative come to me and told me God was going to curse me because I was the person that was supposed to save our family, right? So all of these things were coming at me, all right, because I had chose to let it all fall. Like, no, I don't have the $20. I can't pay your consumer's bill. No, I'm not going to do that for you. No, I'm going to sit. And that was the most uncomfortable thing to do, but it was also the most liberating. It was like I found the eye of the storm, because the truth is that no one before that point saw the real me. They only saw the part of me, the performative part of me, the part that I felt like I need to show them to be accepted. So at some point I had to let it go, because I had told myself being the strong one, being the person that give, being the person that solved everybody problems would make me lovable, right? And I taught them to seek me out for those things. But then I got bitter because when I said no, they got mad. I got bitter because when I needed help, they wouldn't help me. But that wasn't the nature of our relationship, nor was that the type of relationship that I had even built with these individuals. So at first I harbored some emotions against them. And then I had to say, oh no, you created that, right? Learned or not, when you became an adult, you created those type of relationships, and now it's time to change your rhythm. Okay. In my intimate relationships, in my family relationships, in my friend dynamics. And guess what? I never had to cut off anybody. I just want to say that, right? I didn't have to cut off anybody. When I started to change and I started to grow, I learned how to go to my room, because I was the pack up person. Like, I'm going to pack up my clothes, I'm leaving, I'm out of here, you know. But I learned how to go to my room. I learned how to then sit in my emotions. Like, it was a step, it was a stepping stone. If you read my book, I talked about this, where at first I would say, I would pack up my stuff and leave, and then I learned how to just go to your room, right? And then I learned how to just sit here, all right? Just sit in it, right? And then I learned that, oh, this is always going to be challenging. Telling my mom no right now to today is not an easy thing, but it's a doable thing. And I learned how to do it with ease. Not that it's easy, all right? Not that it's easy. So Ms. Hollis said letting go is hard when it's family. It is hard. I do want to ask you, when you say letting go is hard when it's family, when you say letting go, what are you letting go? And then Miss Diane said, good morning. I needed this too. This lesson is the explanation. Uh, this lesson and explanation is hitting close to home. Well, thank you for that comment, Miss Diane. All right. All right. Um, again, sharing my life, that was a form of self-abandonment, and I kept abandoning myself so much so that I had to go find me, right? And I had to learn who I was, and I'm still learning that, right? And I'm still growing and expanding and learning that. And I see it as a journey, right? That I'm 46, I'm learning myself at 46. And then it's the 47-year-old me that I have to still learn. And when I turn 48, this 48-year-old me. Listen, life is a journey. It's not about the destination. And we really need to start enjoying the journey and stop thinking that one day in life I'm going to be happy. One day in life I'm going to have it all together. One day in life this thing's going to happen. That's like saying I'm going to eat one meal and it's going to fill me up for the rest of my life. And we know that's just not true. You're going to eat breakfast this morning if you're a breakfast person, and you're going to get hungry again tonight. All right. And you don't, and your breakfast is not competing with the dinner, right? Right. So in life, it's the same way. Every day we're getting up and we're eating from, right, our life, and life is exposing different parts of us through our relationships and through our interactions. So getting to know ourselves is a lifelong destination, right? And we can learn how to do that with ease and grace. All right. With the grace that God gives us, and then the grace we give ourselves, and then the grace we give other people. All right. So let's pause and ask yourself, where have I abandoned myself in the name of being chosen? All right. Where have I abandoned myself in the name of being chosen? Take a breath. Let that question sit in your body and notice where you feel it. Do you feel it in your throat, in your chest, in your stomach? Or more importantly, who were you before you learned to disappear? Had that individual um, had that individual been activated yet? All right. Or did you lose sight of that person? I told y'all the story about, when I was the I love you person, I would say, I love you, I love you, I love you to everybody. And then I got into a relationship, and the guy that I was with wasn't as intimate. And so I learned in that relationship to not say I love you as much. And I go visit one of my friends' house, And the little girl come running up the driveway, and she's like, "Sheila, you didn't say I love you." And in that moment, I knew that I had started to change, right? That I wasn't the Sheila that entered that relationship, that relationship has shaped me into a harder person that couldn't really express my emotions the way I had taught myself how to and learned how to do, And from that moment, it was like, okay, we gotta go back, right? We gotta go back and get her, that emotional Sheila. So Miss Hollis said, telling them no, it is difficult. So to catch everybody up, Miss Hollis said, letting go is hard when it's family. And I asked her, well, what do you mean by letting go? And she said, telling them no. And it is hard to tell them no, right? It is very hard. And I'm not even gonna make that an easy thing. It's hard to tell anybody no, especially when you've told them yes, right? And remember, life is about expectation. And so they're expecting the yes from you. All right. And so here's the thing, you are changing, they are not. All right. Their need is still very prevalent to them. Right. And if you've met that need, then they've saw you in their brain as the resource to meet this need. And now you are the one who's changing. Right. You're the one that's ready to say no, but that doesn't stop their yes. All right. So I still want you to know that you're still safe in your no, though. Right. And it's okay. Let them be upset. But a lot of times we don't want to make them upset. Right. We don't want them to be upset. We want them to understand our no. But my question to you, Miss Hollis, and anyone else who may struggle with that, how can they understand your no if you have said telling them no is difficult? If you yourself know that it's challenging, then why do you think it's going to be easy for them to accept the no when it's hard for you to even say it? The more easier it is, in other words, the more ease that you have with saying no, then the more receptive it's going to be from other people. But the more resistance you have with saying no, then the more resistance you're going to meet from the people you're telling no to. All right. And that's why I say it's a practice. So the resistance you have now, right, is going to be met with some resistance because you have resistance around no. And that's not to judge you, Miss Hollis, or anybody. I'm just saying that this is the truth. All right. When you say yes so much, now your no has some resistance around it. So it's going to be challenging. All right. But you can do it. You can say it. But in saying it, know that that's going to be some uncomfortableness. They may get upset. They may judge you, right? But I always say people can't judge you no more tougher than you judge yourself. People can't say to you nothing that you have not already said to yourself. So sometimes I'm in awe when people are shocked about the things that people say about them. And I say, well, have that not came up in some way, shape, or form when you saw yourself or you've judged yourself? Have not your inner critic posed that same question to you or judged you in that way? So why are you surprised when the outside world does that? When your internal world is doing it. Okay. And again, this is where we can have compassion and understanding, right? And it doesn't feel good. So let the tears come up. Let the resistance be there, right? Grieve that. But you're gonna be okay. All right, you're gonna be okay. And the only thing in that I will want you to whisper to yourself, even in your tears, even in the resistance, is I'm safe. Because I know that what my no meant. And really know when you say it because you mean it. Don't say it because you're trying to discipline them or you're trying to teach them a lesson or you want them to stop playing in your face or you want them. Your no is not for them. Your no is because of what you value, your capacity, right? It's for your boundary. And so many times we use our no as a discipline act to other people. Like, I'm gonna teach you, so I'm gonna say no to you. I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna do these things. And so it's in the intention of our no as well. All right. All right. So let's move forward. So here's 5 things that your authentic self wants you to know. Did that make sense, Miss Holly? She said, right. Thank you. Okay. Um, so 5 things your authentic self wants you to know. Your authentic self wants you to know that I never left you. All right. This is your authentic self talking. I never left you. You just stopped listening. All right. Listen, your authentic self is still there underneath the performance, underneath the mask, right? It's been waiting for you to come back to it or activate it. It never left. All right. Your authentic self wants you to know that love that requires you to shrink isn't really love. All right. If somebody needs you to be quieter, be smaller, or different to love you, that's not love. That's control. Real love says, be all of who you are. All right. And I do want to say this: there's people in my life right now who is like, you weird, right? That still has struggles, right, to accept 100% of who I am. I let them have that. I ain't trying to, I don't got to cut them off, right? Because that's their cap. And they're communicating that, their cap to me. And I can honor and respect that. I still don't have to change. My question still is my question. My answer still is my answer, right? Whether you accept it or not, whether you understand it or not, like I don't have to dim my light to get you to understand, right? What you don't understand. And I'm okay with that. And I still love you. Right. But I do. I get the you're weird, you're this, you're that. And it's just like, okay, thank you for telling me your who you are and showing and not even in a judgmental way, because everybody's different, right? And I'm very unique, right? And you're very unique. Okay. And it's going to be some things about you that I don't understand. And it's going to be some things about me that you don't understand. And that's fine. I don't have to cut you off because of that. All right. All right. So again, love doesn't require you to shrink. All right. And people love you at their capacity and understanding of love. All right. So your love will never require you to shrink. Okay. Now, somebody else's, in their definition, may feel like it's a requirement. And you're like, I love me though, right? And loving me is going to require me to stay at an A as much as possible. A student in life. Okay. Your authentic self is saying no, doesn't make you selfish, right? No makes you honest. All right. No makes you honest. And the people who truly love you, or the people who you will respect, or that will respect your boundaries, uh, they'll respect your silence. They'll respect your no. They'll respect your values, or learn to respect them. But here's the thing. Again, we got to stop using respect as a form of control. What I mean by that is, you respect me when you listen to me, or you respect me when you do what I tell you to do, or you respect. That's not respect. That's control. Okay. That's a very different thing. And we really need to understand the difference between respect and control. All right. And again, saying no doesn't make you selfish. It actually makes you honest. And in life, the more honest we can get, right, then the more ease we'll feel in life. All right. And then the more the people around us, even if it's the same person, we can activate something very different in that relationship. Your authentic self is telling you that you taught people how to treat you by abandoning yourself. All right. You taught people how to treat you by abandoning you. Listen, when you silence your voice, you teach others that your voice doesn't matter. All right. So this whole idea that I'm going to silence my voice to get this person to respect me more. I'm going to silence my voice to get this person to love me more. I'm going to silence my truth and manipulate and lie so this person will, that's not it. I'm going to honor my voice. I'm going to honor my boundaries. I'm going to honor my value, because when I do it, then I'm teaching them how to treat me. All right. Because I'm treating me in a way. All right. And then last but not least, coming home to yourself will feel uncomfortable at first, because you've spent so long performing, you know, because you've spent so long performing. But discomfort means that you're doing something new. I want you to know that discomfort means that you're doing something new. So it is going to be uncomfortable. Um, and that new way is truly the road to your freedom or your ease. But know that the brain, it only knows you as the performative you, which is why the healing process is such a manual process, and it's not an automatic process. And I want you to understand, when I say this, manual means that you're actually going in, You're actually breathing. You're actually being present, right? You're actually asking yourself questions, because the healing part of you is the part of you that hasn't yet built the habit. All right. The unhealed part of you is the subconscious part of you. So it's automatic, right? You've done that thing over and over and over again. You didn't people please so much. You have you have said no so much, right? I mean, said yes to people so much and no to yourself so much that just by nature it's going to want to come up and it's going to fight you with about it. All right, because that's all you've taught it. But then you say, you know what? I want to start saying yes to me. All right. Now, if you've never said yes to you, let's just step out of talking about other people. If you just start learning how to say yes to you, there's a part of you that's going to be like, now, do we really have to say yes to this? Are we being too much? It's a part of you that's going to go into conflict because it's your conscious mind now, in a sense, fighting or challenging your subconscious mind, right? And that's the dis-ease that you're going to feel, this inner dissonance that is created because, because the new you, right, is behaving in a different way. But don't think that that old stuff is not going to want to come up just because you made a decision that you're going to say, you know, say no to other people and say yes to you. Don't feel like that's just going to pop the light on, right? Like that may be a journey of lifting for a while, right? Till you really train the subconscious part of you, that it's okay to say no and that is safe, which is where rest come in. Because when we start to behave in a certain way and we actually get our rest, then our conscious mind starts to download those things into our subconscious mind, and then they start to be our automatic behavior. But right now we have an automatic behavior that's our wounded person. Okay. And it's being pulled towards the wound. It's being pulled towards the old you, which is why having a person in your life, like a therapist, an accountability partner, coming into our coaching labs for Project Life, right? This is where we practice those things and go through it over and over and over again to train a mind that is safe before we expose ourselves to a community that knows us for who we was and not who we are, right? That's a practice. Okay, that's a practice. And so that's why I encourage awareness is, the first part, but action is that second part, and putting it in a practice first, right? It's I'm gonna give this example. Say you invite somebody over for dinner, right? And it's your first time cooking this. And this is an important person, right? The first time you cook it, you probably not going to invite that person over. I wouldn't, let me say that, right? I want to test this meal first, right? I want to make sure that that I had the right seasonings. I want to get some feedback about it, right? So I'm gonna practice this meal a couple of times before I take it to, let's say, Thanksgiving dinner, right? I'm gonna practice my macaroni a couple of times before I take it for everybody else to try out. And that's what we got to do for us. We got to practice saying no. We got to practice loving ourselves first in a container of safety, in a safe environment with our therapists, with our coaches, in a coaching lab at Project Life or any other community. We got to practice that first. And then we introduce that into our interactions. But so many of us, we jump to our environment and to our interactions and to our relationships, and we want them to know that I'm changing, I'm doing some things differently, but you haven't practiced it and you think that that's just going to make them acquiesce or change or respect that. And it's just like, that's not their job, it's yours. So you need to get a container. You need to find the help. You need to practice that. And then you introduce that to the community. So when they like, oh, you trying to change, like you already muscled up. You already strong enough to handle their criticism because you practice it in a safe environment. All right. All right. So here's some insight. You're wrestling with self-abandonment, right? The way you disconnect from your needs, your voice, and the truth, in truth to really maintain acceptance. Because every time you self-abandon, here's why this matters. Because every time you self-abandon yourself, you send a message to your nervous system that my truth isn't safe. All right. And when your truth isn't safe, you guys, neither are you. All right. So when your truth isn't safe, neither are you. So when you stop disappearing, you stop attacking or attract. So when you stop disappearing, you actually start to attract the relationships that don't require your performance. All right. Um, I work with so many people. One of the testimonies that come up for me is when I stopped changing myself to be loved, I finally attracted people who really love the real me. All right. And that is a feeling that you can't even articulate, right? It's because it's a feeling. It's like, man, I met my person, right? This is such a aligned situation. All right. And research supports this. Research shows that people pleasing and self abandonment are linked with anxiety, depression, and uh, chronic stress. Authentic self expression, on the other hand, it actually activates the prefrontal cortex and regulates the nervous system. All right. So let's get into our framework for today, which is the love of self. We're talking about our love of self today. Here's 5 essential things about your love of self or about a self abandonment that I think is important for you to know. Self abandonment is a trauma response. This is why we don't have to judge it. All right. So self abandonment is a trauma response. You learn to disappear because at some point being yourself was not safe. All right. That's it. You learn to disappear because being you wasn't safe. You either got wood for it, you got judged for it, you got bullied for it, right? And something in your nervous system said, or something in your being at that young age, teenage years or whatever, early 20s, said, hey, it's not safe. Let's perform. Let's do what the environment wants us to do. All right. But I do want you to know you're safe now. And it's time to come back to you. All right. That was a temporary pause for a temporary season in your life. And now it's time for you to come back to you. Number 2, people pleasing is self betrayal, you guys. You've heard me say this over and over again. People pleasing, a lot of people say this, is not about the other person. Okay. It's about you self soothing. So people pleasing is a self soothing mechanism. I don't want to feel their rejection. I don't want them to judge me a certain way. I don't want them to have this, that. And so we people please, right? We fawn. That's what it's called. Fight, bite, freeze, or fawn. So in the nervous system, we go along to get along, right? Okay. So people pleasing is self betrayal. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're choosing their comfort over your truth. All right. All right. So you're choosing your perception of how they're going to respond over your real feelings, because if I share the real me, they won't accept that, and I don't want to feel that rejection. All right. Listen, that's not kindness. That's not you being kind. That is self-abandonment. All right. I just need you to know that. All right. Because I hear a lot of people say, I'm a people pleaser. To me, people pleasing is a coping mechanism, right? And I'm trying to see, okay, so what is it that you're trying to avoid feeling? What judgments come up for you? Okay. Number 3, you can't be a real intimacy on a false self. A lot of us are in relationships. I work with a lot of couples in relationships that they're just not honest, right? They are performing. I'm going to be who I need to be so that my mate can love me and accept me. And then the mate is being who they think they need to be so to be accepted and loved. And both of them don't feel accepted or loved. And so they argue about the smallest things. And the truth of the matter is that neither one of them feel accepted or loved because they're not being honest about who they are. And here's the thing, at a very deep level, their intellect knows that. Their intelligence knows that they don't even know me. And if they knew my truth, would they really accept me? Right? They don't even know how I really feel. If they really knew how I feel, would they still love me? Right? So that's the deeper root of it, but it comes out in conflict in the relationship. Again, you can't be a real intimacy on the false self. If people only know the version or the performative version of you, they don't actually know you, you guys. All right. And you'll always feel lonely, even in a crowd, even in a relationship. You'll feel single because you know that they don't know, and they know that you don't know. Okay. And so a part of coming back is activating that part of you. And guess what? There's something called opportunity cost. It may cost you the relationship, not the person, but it may cost you the relationship you have with that person now, right? But that cost is going to it's an investment into you having a different relationship with you. All right. All right. So it's like you going from a D student to an A student in this thing called life. All right. And so it may shift the very thing you want from this individual may come full circle, right? But it's time to be honest with ourselves. Number 4, your intuition has been trying to guide you. Again, self-love, your intuition has been trying to guide you. That gut feeling you ignore, the voice you silence, that's your authentic self trying to protect you. All right. All right, I need you to know that. And then last but not least, choosing yourself isn't selfish. Okay. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. You can't pour from an empty cup, you guys. All right. You can't love others deeply if you abandon yourself. That creates bitterness, that creates resentment, and then you think somebody owe you something, right? And so many of us are in relationships where we feel like our partner owe us way more than they can even pay. They cannot have paid that emotional debt of your sacrifice because you chose to not follow your dreams, because you chose to forgive them, because you chose some things, right? Because you chose to self abandon. Now you want your partner to repay you for that. All the stuff I did, all the stuff I gave up, and the most hurtful thing your partner can say is what? I didn't ask you to do that. And then you really feel pissed. No, because you didn't have to ask me because I already knew what you needed. Right. And so I did that for you, even when I didn't even want to. Well, if you didn't want to do it, then you shouldn't have did it. Right. That's tough. But that's the realest thing that can happen in a relationship is for your no to be no and your yes to be yes. All right. All right. So again, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't love others deeply if you're abandoning yourself. Self-love isn't selfish, you guys. It is so necessary. Because when you start to learn how to love you, you actually really do start to learn how to love other people. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat as we go into our biblical wisdom and wrap up today's lesson. All right. So our biblical wisdom for today, I said Reset Monday, the weight of the forgotten self. I really enjoy the biblical wisdom part. This is First Matthew's 16 and 24. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? All right. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Listen, this verse is asking the most fundamental identity question. What point of what's the point of external success if you lose your internal truth? All right. In the context of today's lesson, which we're talking about self-abandonment, this verse is saying you can have all the approvals, all the acceptances, and all the validation from others. But if you had to abandon yourself to get it, what did that really, what did you really gain? What does that really mean? All right. More practically, when we talk about forfeiting, or when the verse talk about forbidding your soul, we're talking about abandoning your authentic self. All right. Abandoning your authentic self to fit in. We're talking about silencing your intuition to avoid rejection. We're talking about performing a version of yourself that isn't real, right? Just to be chosen. Listen, the soul here isn't some religious concept floating in the sky, right? It's you. It's your essence, it's your truth, it's your authentic divinity, right? It's your authentic identity. That God within you, the inner wisdom, the your intuition, your authentic self is asking, what's the point of being loved by everyone if the person they love isn't even the real you? I know this is a very, I would say, deep but simple question. If you performing right now, just say they fall in love with that performance, that character. What is the point of them falling in love with that character if you not even that character? right? If you showboating and you're doing all of these things for your friends, for your family, for your job, but you're not even that, right? So the experience that you truly want, it's not going to happen because it's connected to the character, not to you. All right. And we definitely need to know that. We don't have to judge it, but it's like, what's the point? What's the point of being loved by everybody if the person that they love isn't the real you? We see a lot of actors go through this. We see a lot of individuals like, we love the image of a person, but not the person themselves. And the person feels that. All right. Here's the real life application of this. You got the promotion, but you had to suppress your values to get it. All right. You stayed in a relationship, but you had to silence your voice to keep the relationship. You maintain friendships, but you had to become someone else to even sustain it, to sustain the friendship. You gained the world, this external validation, but you forfeited your soul, which is your internal truth. All right. Neuroscience supports this scripture, you guys. Neuroscience says that the cost of unauthenticity, there is a cost of unauthenticity on your brain. Science says that when you live inauthentically, right, performing, people pleasing, and self abandoning, the brain activates the anterior regulated cortex, the ACC. Okay, that's what it's called, the ACC part of your brain. The this part of your brain is the conflict detection center. All right, this region actually lights up when you have this cognitive dissonance, a mismatch between who you are and who you're pretending to be. All right. Chronic cognitive dissonance, you guys, actually increases what? Cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and decreases dopamine, which is your reward hormone. Right. And then we try to go supplement that with what? Drugs, alcohol, sex, strolling. We try to get these hits of dopamine, but your body was already created to have dopamine levels. But if you're performing, then you have high cortisol levels and your dopamine levels is dropping. So that's why you don't have no energy. You out of pocket. You out of your space. I always say people have their own space. SPACE, a spiritual pattern that's authentically creating energy. Or if you don't want to say spiritual, a specific pattern that's authentically creating energy. And your job in this life is to find your space, because that is where your energy is, right? That is where your ease is. That is where the grace is. And so many of us is out of our space. All right. We're out of our space. So the translation is that your brain literally knows when you're betraying yourself. This is why integrity is so important. Do you behave by yourself the way you behave in front of everybody else? Right? Are you putting on a performance and then when you come home, you take all of that stuff off and then, now you got to sit with you? This is integrity. Integrity is so important for us as adults, right? To have healthy relationships with ourselves and other people. All right. So again, the brain literally knows when you're betraying yourself and it punishes you. I'm using this word softly, but it punishes you with stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion, right? It's like a form of punishment. Like, you gonna do us like that? Okay, I'm gonna do you like this. All right. The scripture connection: forfeiting your soul, living in chronic cognitive dissonance where your external performance contradicts your internal truth. So forfeiting your soul is equal to living in cognitive dissonance where your external performance is contradicting your internal truth. All right. And so many people are living in cognitive dissonance right now, especially with social media. Like, what you post on social media is like, it's just like not at all like how you living in your own life and things like that. Number two, neuroscience supports this by saying that there's a reward system and authenticity. So what science says is that when you live authentically, express your true thoughts, honor your boundaries, make choices that align with your values, your brain will reward you, right? It will reward you by creating those dopamine pathways, okay? And that pathway is activated, which helps you to feel better. All right. So that authentic self-expression releases dopamine. And when that's released, it creates feelings of satisfaction, feelings of joy, and feelings of alignment. And a lot of us are looking for that feeling under this character or performance, and it's like you'll never get there, not internally. You may get there from other people, but that wholeness that you're looking for, that fulfillment that you're looking for, that joy that you're looking for, is only going to happen when you come to you. Okay. When you start to be honest with you, when you start to live in your truth. All right. The translation of this is that your brain rewards you for being yourself. Your brain does. There's a reward that you get for you just being you. That guess what? Don't come from nobody. It's already in you to reward you for being you. Now that's very different because we were trained or we learn when we was little that our rewards come from external sources. That's why we carry that type of mindset into adults. But when we become adults, you guys, we have to go inward, and there's already a mechanism within you that is going to reward you for being honest with yourself. The more you experience that, the more you start to like release that energy into the world, and then the reward that you're looking for will come from them. But you have to activate it on the inside first. All right. And then last but not least, self-abandonment, the stress response. So what science says about self-abandonment is that people pleasing and self-abandonment actually keeps your nervous system in sympathetic activity, which is a fight, freeze, or fawn. Why? Because your body perceives self-betrayal as a threat. So literally the threat, the red flag, and all of that you're feeling is you, right? It's you. Your body is recognizing your self-betrayal and is seeing it as a threat. And you're literally harming yourself by abandoning yourself. And we're looking on the outside for the red flag. We're looking on the outside for the individuals who are going to do us wrong, that's going to lie to us, that's going to deceive us. Yeah, you on high alert and you're looking for it, but the brain is looking for it because it's witnessed you do it. Right. And then because we can't see ourselves, right, we think it's the other people around us, but it's like, no, it's you. Okay. Chronic self abandonment actually leads to, again, elevated cortisol levels, disrupted sleep, weakened immune systems, and anxiety and depression. All right. When you gain the world, that's the verse. When you gain the world by abandoning yourself, your body treats it like a threat, not a win. So you may win on the outside, but on the inside, you fighting. Your body is treating it like a threat. It's releasing all type of chemicals into your body, into your bloodstream, right? That's making you tired, anxious, depressed, right? And we think it's the people, and it's like, no, it's my decisions. It's my decision to self-abandon me. All right. All right. So what this verse means for your nervous system, like your soul, which is your authentic self, and your nervous system, they are connected, you guys. So when you say yes, when you mean no, your nervous system registers that as a threat. When you silence your truth to keep the peace, your nervous system registers that as danger. And when you perform to be loved, your nervous system registers that as inauthentic or stress. All right. But when you start to understand your boundaries, learn what they are, start to implement them, and honor your boundaries, your nervous system registers safety. All right. When you learn what your truth is and you start to practice that and you speak your truth, your nervous system registers that as alignment. And when you start to understand who you are and learn who you are, show up authentically in that for what you know it to be today. All right. Because your authenticity is growing and expanding, and it may look different. Just like when we plant a tree, the roots look very different than the trunk. The trunk look very different than the leaves. The leaves look very different than the apple. Authenticity can change in that way. And we have seasons where we may look different, and it is our authentic self because just because it's going to look different. And I have to get let you know that you have permission to change and look different. All right. So showing up authentically for who you are today and who you know yourself to be today, your nervous system registers that as a reward. So the scripture is asking, what is the neurological cost of external validation at the expense of your internal truth? All right. And here's the answer: chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, and nervous system dysregulation. And if you want to start manifesting the life that you want, we need to start working on this nervous system. Okay. I created the stop and now method. A big part of that is working with the polyvagal theory and really reprogramming your nervous system. Okay. It is a very important part of who you are in the life you're attracting financially, sexually, in our relationships. And if you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you are attracting those type of situations into your life. And we have to get you to safe and social. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat. So let's go to our second scripture. I said first Matthew is no first Matthew, you guys. That was my first verse. It was Matthew. Okay. Our promise verse or our promise verse for today, Psalms 139:14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Let's get through this scripture, you guys. Here's how this verse ties into today's lesson. This verse is an antidote for self-abandonment, you guys. It's saying you were made with intention. Every part of you, the loud part of you, the quiet part of you, the messy part of you, all of it, right, was designed on purpose. In the context of today's lesson, this verse is a reminder that you don't need to edit yourself to be loved. You were created worthy. Okay? You were created worthy. And if we truly believe that God knows every step you're going to take, everything you're going to do, then why do we judge ourselves so harshly? Right? Why have we allowed religion, people, and things like that to make us feel bad about the mistakes that God already knew that I was going to make? Right? My job is to get the lesson from the mistake, to stay the A student. That's my job. But the mistake was already going to be made. If we believe that God is the seer of all things and knew you when you was in your mother's womb, right? The part that we play in that is let me learn the lesson, or this is going to continue to repeat itself. All right. So again, you don't need to edit yourself to be loved. You were created worthy. All right. When we say fearfully and wonderfully made, we're talking about your unique design, your personality, your voice, your gifts. All right. You inherit your inherent worth. Your inherent worth, which is not based on your performance, it's based on your existence. Just because you hear, all right? Just because you hear, you have value. All right. And then your authentic self, the you before you learn to shrink, or the you that has not been activated because you were taught to shrink all your life. Listen, to God within you, again, your body's wisdom, your DNA, that nervous system knows that you are enough just as you are. You were loved first before you were loved first before you did anything, before you performed, or before you had to prove anything. What you're doing now is a learned behavior. And because it was a learned behavior, guess what? It could be unlearned. And I'll just say, like, not unlearned. You can learn something else. All right. I do want to also disrupt this belief that we're going to unlearn something. Listen, once the brain has experienced something, it experienced it. You can't wash it away. It ain't going nowhere. But what you can do is focus and learn something different, and focus on that so much, right? That you hear this and experience this a lot less. I give the example of your playlist. If you only got 5 songs on your playlist, then you're going to hear one of those songs 1 to 5 times, right? So every 5th song, you're going to hear that song, right? Now, say these 5 songs is the 5 worst experiences in your life, all right? And then you go and you remember those experiences is not going anywhere. You may you know what it smell like, you know what it see like, right? These 5 experiences, the worst 5 experiences that you ever had, you're not going to unlearn those experiences, you guys. Unfortunately, the brain has been imprinted with those, unless something happens to you, you get amnesia or something like that. But what you can do is you can learn 100, 200 great experiences. Okay. And what will happen is now you're learning to have these great experiences, 200 of them. That means that now these 5 got to rotate within 200 great experiences. So that means like every what 109th time, I'm going to think about that old experience. But that means like at least 200 times, right? I'm going to have 200 good thoughts, right? Before I get to that one. And then I just keep taking on and focusing on the good. And that's why gratitude is so important. I have this I'm full challenge that's coming out this week. And it's really about gratitude, right? Pushing you to learn how to focus on your gratefulness. All right. right? So again, you are enough. You were loved first before you did anything, before you performed, and before you had to prove. Here's a real life application. You don't have to be quieter to be likable. You don't have to shrink to feel safe, and you don't have to perform to be valuable. You guys, you were fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And what that means is that you were designed to take up space exactly as you are right now, right? Right now. Yeah, you don't have to clean yourself up. You don't have to, but what, I'm gonna come to God one side. Listen, God said, come as you are. You can activate that. Now, mind you, let's talk about what that activity looks like. If it's resistance and you need, when you plant a seed, all right, just say you want to go plant a seed, a tomato bush or a rose bush. You're not expecting that tomato plant. You're not expecting it to eat tomatoes tomorrow, right? You're gonna water it, right? And so when we activate this fearfully and wonderfully made, just and if something about you is like resisting that, then just know you activated the seed. Just activate it. And then every day, multiple times a day, speak to that part of you that's fearfully and wonderfully made. Water it, speak it, see it, feel it, right? Be full of it, right? Every day, every day, every day. Put it into practice, into one of your rotations, okay? And then eventually, right, you will experience the harvest of that behavior. All right. So again, you were designed to take up space exactly as you are. If you don't feel that way, if there's some resistance, then plant this, activate the seed because it's in you. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. We cannot deny that. So let's activate that. Let's water. Let's speak to that space every day, a couple of moments throughout the day, so that you can reap the harvest, so that you too can know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. All right. So that you can come into agreement with what is already true. All right. So neuroscience supports the scripture. The brain's default wiring is truly authenticity. Listen, what science says is that infants and young children naturally express their authentic selves, crying when they're sad, laughing when they're happy, saying no, right? When they don't want something. And we all know this as parents, right? Like kids gonna be kids, all right? This is because their prefrontal cortex, which is the editor of the brain, is not fully developed. As we grow, though, we learn to suppress authenticity based on the environmental conditions. So as a kid, you were authentic. No, I don't want that. You threw the bottle, you spit the food out, you cried when you were sad, you laughed when you was happy. And then the environment started to shape that. Drink this bottle. You better be grateful for this, right? And your authentic self starts saying, hey, it ain't safe. Let me go and drink this bottle because I don't want to get a whoop. And let me go and eat these peas because I don't want, mama to spank me. Let me go and do this, right? So the environment started to shape you, right? Trauma, rejection, and criticism, it started to shape how you started to what? Interact. All right. Listen, you were born authentic, you guys. Self-abandonment is something that was learned, okay? Not natural. All right. And again, some of our environments just required us to be different. All right. It was a part of survival mode. It was a part of the trauma. It was a part of that part. But you are grown now. All right. And if you want something different, you've got to do something different. Again, the scripture, fearfully and wonderfully made, it is equal to saying your original design was authentic. The performance came later through trauma, not through your truth. All right. Another thing that I want you to know how the scripture supports this verse is that self-compassion actually activates the brain's safety system. So when science says when you practice self-acceptance, okay, when you learn how to accept you, right, the belief that you're enough as you are, your brain's isolary or Isla is insula. I think it's insula. Your brain's insula, which is just the self-awareness center, and prefrontal cortex regulates the center and activates. All right. This creates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of you, which actually calms down your nervous system. When your nervous system calms down, that's when you're in manifestation, right? That's when you start to attract the life you want. All right. Self-criticism, on the other hand, actually activates the amygdala, which is the threat center, and keeps you in fight or flight. All right. And then another thing I want you to know is authentic self expression strengthens neural pathways. So every time you honor your truth, you set boundaries, you speak your needs, you express your emotions, guess what? You strengthen the neural pathways of self trust. All right. So this is called neuroplasticity. All right. This is your brain ability to rewire itself. All right. Your brain's rewiring based on repeated behavior. So every time you tell the truth, your brain starts to rewire itself. And again, when that happens, you start to build habits that are more aligned in who you are. The more you choose yourself, the easier it becomes, you guys, basically. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. All right. That neural pathway for self-abandonment actually weakens, and then the pathway to authenticity is strengthens. All right. You can rewire your brain. The point is that you can rewire your brain to stop abandoning yourself. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that work? All right. And your body knows when you're living in alignment. This is the last thing I want you to know. Your body has an awareness system, the ability to sense internal states like hunger, emotions, your sex drive, right? Intuition. When you live authentically, your vagal nervous system, the main nerve that's in your parasympathetic nervous system, is activated. When that is activated, guess what? It creates the feelings of calm. All right. When you self abandon, though, your vagal nervous system is suppressed. So your body feels this tense, this anxiousness, and this disconnect. What this means is that your body was designed to really thrive in authenticity, not performance. If you don't hear nothing else, this body, this vessel that you're living through right now and experiencing life through, it was actually created to live in authenticity. It was actually created to live in your yes. So when you accept yourself as you are, your nervous system registers safety. When you speak your truth, your vagus nervous system actually connects. The connection that you want, that connection that you're performing to get, that connection that you're lying to get. If you just tell your truth, you will have that. Now, the people may look different or they may look the same. All right. But that deep desire and hope that you have, your body was already designed to give that to you. If you just come as you are, if you just learn how to be honest. And when you honor your design, right, your brain releases dopamine. That's the feel good energy. So now that feel good uh chemical. So now you feel lighter. You feel clear. Okay. But when you criticize yourself, your amygdala activates, which is a threat. When you suppress your truth, your vagus nervous system shuts down and it will create disconnect, all right, in your relationships and with you. And when you perform to be loved, your nervous system will signal stress, all right. So the scripture is saying you were made whole. You don't need to edit, all right. And science confirms this by saying your body, your brain, and your nervous system function best when you are being who? You. When you are being you. And if that feeling of who am I is like screaming, I would just say, listen, join Project Life. Or if you don't want to join Project Life because you know me, right? Go get a therapist. Start learning who you are. All right. So, how these scriptures work together? Basically, the Bible says, what will it profit a man who gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?" Neuroscience supports this and says, when you abandon yourself for external validation, your brain releases cortisol, stress hormones, not dopamine reward, and your body knows when you're betraying your truth. All right, and it will exhaust you. All right, it would exhaust you trying to get you to stop. All right. And then the Bible says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Neuroscience supports this and that your brain is a reward system. Your brain's reward system activates when you live authentically in this place of self acceptance. Your nervous system is regulated and your body was designed to thrive when you start to be you. All right. So if you didn't have permission before today, I would just say, listen, one step inward on today and really learn how to be you. All right. So place your hand on your heart. We're going to set our intention. Now speak this out loud or silently. I release the lie that I have to perform to be loved. I receive the truth that I am enough. just as I am. I give myself permission to take up space. I give my voice permission to speak, and I am safe being seen, and I am loved for who I am. All right. Take a deep breath, release. All right. Now I want you to answer this question. How does it feel in your body when you know you don't have to disappear to be loved? All right. Let's put this into action today. Whoo, that was a long lesson. Um, I didn't think it was gonna be that long, but I think it was good. If it was good for you guys, drop a heart in the chat. Let me know. All right. Action steps. Identify one area where you've abandoned yourself. Name it. All right. Without judgment, with compassion. Right. Ask yourself, what would honoring myself look like here? All right. And then practice saying one truth today, even if it feels uncomfortable. We have to really get into a different relationship with our comfortability. Like life is just not going to provide comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable all the time. It's just not. All right. I do want you to know though that there is a reward for that uncomfortableness, and that's ease. And that's you knowing you. And when you can get up and you can love you and you can be there for you and you can advocate for you and you can speak up for you, even with the no's, because even when you start loving, you're still gonna be people who say no. It's still gonna be like the naysayers, all of that's gonna happen, but you're gonna learn to treat yourself different. And even in your relationships, you may be married, but when you love you, your marriage may conflict, right? You may have some spats, right? Y'all may not get along, right? But you're not going to bed like stressed. You're like you're going to bed like I love me and I'm gonna learn how to love him too. Or love them too. But it starts with you. That's my point. It starts with you. We got to stop looking for love in all the wrong places and start looking for it in the place where the seed was planted, which is in you. All right. So here's your journal prompt. Where have I abandoned myself in the name of being chosen? Here's your self-abandonment. Here's your audit for today. Um, in the way we carry. So here's your audit. So I want you to finish these sentences. Okay. So the version of me I've been performing is what? All right. The real me wants to say what? All right. One way I can honor myself this week is by doing what? And then freedom for me would feel like what? And again, if you don't know what freedom would look like, if you don't know how to honor yourself yet without guilt, we work on this every week that's what Project Life is created for. That's what that coaching lab is created for. So, you can pay that $47 a month and have an accountability partner literally every week in a group of individuals that's there to support you. Your affirmation for today: I am safe being myself. I don't have to perform to be loved. And then your intention today: I choose authenticity over acceptance. All right. I'm not saying that this is an easy easy road. These conversations this week talking about identity may shake a lot of you guys. Hopefully it shakes you inward. Hopefully it activates that scripture that you are beautifully and wonderfully made. And if you really want to start to experience the life that you desire and deserve, I would just say, hey, you've done everything else. Why not bet on you? All right. You done bet on everybody else. Maybe it's time for you to bet on yourself. All right. You done gave everybody else 20, 30 years, 20, 30 minutes, chance after chance. Okay. Let's start doing that for ourselves and see, how life changed. I heard a coach say that we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can be at 3 years, right? So I could say in 3 years, you can be in this exact same space, or you can be experiencing a totally different life in 3 years. It's up to you. Now, I know you think 3 years is a long time, but I want you to think about 3 years in 2023 or 2022. Think about your life in 2022. Did not that come? It's 2025. Right? Are you not having the same conversations that you were having? Are you not sometimes in probably the same situation financially? That was just 3 years ago. So you could say it's a long time, but it comes up really fast. All right. So what do you want 2028 to look like? Right? And do some about it today. Do something about it today. All right. Again, your bonus challenge, if you want that today, practice say no to something that you don't want, or that practice saying no to something you don't want to do, and notice your body's response. This is how we train the body, teach the body that it's okay to say no. All right. I just want you to know that if this lesson really resonated with you, you already know what to do. Put a fire in the chat. While I do this call, this challenge, and this charge, I'm asking, what truth are you walking away with today? I'm going to challenge you to write a letter. I'm sorry for leaving you in, right? I'm sorry for leaving you in letter. Let yourself grieve what you gave up to be chosen, all right? All right. We all make mistakes. We all do things, and we have to grieve that, all right? And we got to let it go, all right? And so my charge to you is to go shape your life, not by disappearing, but by showing up for you. Okay. In my closing remarks, you can't heal if you keep disappearing, you guys. You've spent your whole life, okay, your whole life becoming what others needed. And today I want you to ask yourself, who are you if you stop performing? All right. Who are you if you stop performing? The answer is waiting for you in the silence, in your gut, in your thoughts, but the answer is waiting for you if you stop avoiding. And the truth um, will be shown, right, over time. All right. And we really do have to learn how to stop silencing our voice. Okay. Um, and really learn how to hear ourselves. All right. Tomorrow is Transformational Tuesday. We're talking about the mask we wear to survive. Um, yeah. The real you is still there underneath the performance, underneath the mask. All right. They've been waiting for you to come back. Okay. So tonight, I want you to look at the mirror and say, I see you. 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 And I'm not leaving you again. All right. I see you and I'm not leaving you again, because you deserve to be loved for who you are. All right. Not for who you're pretending to be. All right. This lesson is your permission to stop performing and start what? And start being. Being who? Being you. All right. I want you to know that, remember this, if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. I want you to know I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.